invite and coming over to Kenyatta University. Now I'm going to take you through what the center is all about, but also in connection to the various partners that we have, what we have been able to achieve, and where we are going as far as tourism resilience and crisis management is concerned. My name is Esther Munyere, Dr. Esther Munyere. I'm the Director, Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center for Eastern Africa. Now, I'm going to take you through very quickly about the introduction, the establishment of the center, and the various projects and programs that we have been working on. Now, this center was conceptualized by the United Nations World Tourism Organization in 2017. And the reason why it came into being is because the tourism community in the world realized that we can't be dealing with crisis and creating resilience as individual countries. We need to look at these issues as a region. So the purpose of this center is to come up with policy-relevant research on destination preparedness, management and recovery to advise the industry on how to deal with crisis, but also to prevent the crisis from happening, to deal with it if it has to happen, and then to recover. The Mother Center is located in Jamaica, was established in 2018-2019. We are glad that the CS, the Vice Chancellor, and the whole team from Kenya, and myself as well, represented Kenya and the Eastern Africa Center in Jamaica around 17th of February this year. So we have satellite centers that are in progress in various regions. That is in Canada, US, UK, Nepal, South Africa, Hong Kong, and others. And these are regional centers, so they cover several countries, as in the Eastern Africa region cover 14 countries. And there are discussions on the establishment of others. Now, the Board of Governors chair is the Minister for Tourism for Jamaica. It's co-chaired by the former UNWTO Secretary General, Dr. Taleb Rufai. And the patron for this center is His Excellency the President, who is the regional chair for Africa. And the chairperson of the center is the Minister for Tourism, or the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism. And we are glad that CS, you are our chair for the center, for this Eastern Africa Center. However, within Kenyatta University, to assist us in our operations, we have a board, Kenyatta University Board, that is chaired by Professor Onywere. Now, this is the region that the center covers, the 14 countries of the Eastern Africa region, domiciled in Kenya. Now, these are the areas of our focus. We do a lot of research, policy, capacity building. We do communications, projects and programs, and monitoring and evaluation in areas such as climate change, securities, pandemics like the COVID we are just recovering from, economic, entrepreneurial, etc. Now, within the Kenya context, the center was gazetted in 2020 in line with the National Tourism Crisis Steering Committee. And maybe I could request the members who are part of this Tourism Crisis Steering Committee to wave. The CEOs of tourism. Yeah, thank you very much. A big hand for them. Yes, so this is the team that we work with. The director for the center is part of that team. And the center was gazetted alongside the National Tourism Crisis Steering Committee as the think tank on matters resilience and crisis management. I would like to say that we have worked very, very hard since the establishment of the center in 2019, and I would like to appreciate particularly the CEOs who are here, because we work hand in hand. We have created lots of documents that have driven the policy environment in this country. Some of them, like when COVID happened in 2020 March, we started off carrying out these researches. We did a research on impact of COVID-19, what was being done, and the recovery pathways. And we created major documents like diversification of the tourism product, digitization of tourism and domestic tourism marketing, which drove the industry since 2020 up to date on the various pathways that we truly appreciate the team in their support. Other than that, this was commissioned by the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife then, but also we work closely with the private sector. We have been working on a project on sustainable tourism, so we've created policies on sustainable tourism with Mr. Fred Kaigwa and Edith, the CEOs of tourism, the Ecotourism Kenya and Kenya Association of Tour Operators and other partners. We've also worked very closely with the Kenya Association of Travel Agents. Bomoshuha Agnes is the CEO of Kata on travel readiness. After COVID, we wanted to know if tourists were ready to come to Kenya. So we did that and advised policy on the areas people are afraid of, like accommodation, for example. Also, we have a big project on tourism product inventory with Kenya Tourism Board. I can wave. Yes, Betty. Igwe and the whole team from Kenya Tourism Board, we are creating a tourism product package through using GIS. We will have a demo after my presentation from our partners, ESRI, East Africa. Hotels impact, we worked that with the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers. Mike Masharia, here, please wave. That's the CEO of Kenya Association of Hotels and Caterers. Also, we worked closely with the umbrella body of the tourism sector, private sector. That is Susan Ongalo on PCR protocols. And we consolidated everything that was being done in different countries about the PCR. And that not only advised Kenya on what to do, but also the whole of Africa. The document was requested by many countries in Africa, which was such a great success. Susan is not with us, but she sent her apologies and she's with us in this journey. Now, we have also other very many initiatives, not only in Kenya, but globally. Like this is this year, last February from 15th to 17th, where we visited Jamaica, and the CS, Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage, was the lead for the delegation, and during that time we had many decision makers from across the world, and this is CS with the Prime Minister for Jamaica, and we were also with the Vice Chancellor. Now, this is one of the big projects that we are working with the various partners, mainly the Kenya Tourism Board, but also the National Museums of Kenya, ESRI, Eastern Africa, who are the mappers, the Ministry of Tourism, State Department of Tourism, are working very, very closely, and the Council of Governors. We have an apology from Council of Governors as well. So we are working to ensure that all the counties, we have a package of their products, what they offer. And we are glad that the CECs of the various counties are the ones who feed into this system. So they give us information about their hotels, activities, what is there in their counties as far as tourism is concerned. So we have these surveys, they are online surveys, they submit information. And the current one, what we are going to demonstrate after my presentation is about culture and heritage, because we realized after doing all this mapping, the culture and heritage was not that rich, so we embarked on that. And we are happy that the Tourism Promotion Fund, can wave CEO Steve? Yeah, Steve, was supported the project. We were able to fund ESRI through the Tourism Promotion Fund to collect data, analyze, and were able to produce what we are going to present in a bit. Now, in human resource development, we have many projects. We take young people to the US for 1 year, and then they come back with a lot of training in hotels, in top hotels in the US. We also have collaborations with many institutions in Europe, where our staff, students, and members of the industry also are able to go to to Europe and get experience. We also invite outsiders. We have teams from the US whom we collaborate with. We had International Business Connection Summit. We normally have it in July every year, where Americans come, and instead of just going to the Mara and enjoying our wildlife, beach, heritage, and all that, we have engagements with the industry players. So, like the photo you can see down there, these are the CEOs, some of whom are represented here, whom we honored through the project with the iChange Nations Award, which is awarded mainly to the presidents, but we requested that they be awarded because they fought very, very strongly through COVID and helped us get through it. We have other teams from the US coming. We have lots of policy initiatives. The latest one is this one, Green Tour Kenya project on sustainable tourism in Kenya, policy gaps and recommendations with Kenya Association of Tour Operators and Ecotourism Kenya. Thank you, team, for all the support. And what we are emphasizing is that there is need for law enforcement, for awareness creation about sustainable tourism, for coordination between the national government and the county government, and to uptake technology. Now, this is something that is in progress that will make this country very, very resilient. And if we are successful to make our resilience success, then it will be easy to sell the idea also to the other 13 countries. So what we are doing is we are creating a package using GIS and remote sensing to understand what risks we have. So we are creating maps on early warning and our capability and all that, and share those in dashboards. And we are connecting that information to the ground through surveys. So people on the ground, the tourism stakeholders will be feeding us with information, and we create this on preparedness, on mitigation, on response, on recovery, on long-term resilience, like what we are doing around mapping. So this is something that is on progress, and we are glad that with coming up or the creation of a lab, a big resource lab, then we'll be successful in informing you, the industry, on where we have issues, what is happening, and where we are going. Now, we are also establishing the UNWTO International Network of Sustainable Tourism Observatories, the very first one in Africa. We have communicated with UNWTO. They have trained us on how to create this. So once we have the funding in place, then we'll create this. And this will measure our successes as far as sustainable tourism is concerned, to create resilience. Like how are we doing on climate change, on waste management, on any areas that Kenya is interested in measuring. Also, we have a collaboration with military and police in tourism resilience through the International Peace Support Training Center. The members can wave. Yeah, that's the team from, they are constituted of the military, the police, and civilians. So what we are doing is we are working with them to train our industry. Like, for example, at the gate, if a car comes and one searches, if you find explosives in a car, what action do you take? So that was what we are training our industry to take action. Also, we have a big project on women economic empowerment in tourism that is running for 5 years, that will support in creating affirmative action for women, deal with taxes and levies, policy, and cushioning the industry in terms of crisis. So these are some of the output that we have: policy briefs, policy papers, conferences, and what have you. So thank you very much, and let's have a great discussion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Esther,
for this morning. And we are discussing resilience, and the invitation had asked us to consolidate our learnings. So I just picked about 4 points on the key learnings that, as the hospitality subsector, we picked from COVID. And the first one was very interesting. It had to do with employment. We realized that we could actually put a freeze on employment without necessarily following they laid down laws. So we did not follow the Employment Act, we did not follow the Labor Relations Act, we didn't follow the Labor Institutions Act, we didn't follow the collective bargaining agreements. We just met, discussed, and just simply put a freeze on employment. Obviously, we had to finance it. We got some money. We paid our staff to be out of work for about 6 months. Then we went down to have salaries. Then we went down to stipends until the crisis was over. So by the time we were coming out of the crisis, we had lost very few jobs. The other one is collaboration with academia and academic institutions. Dr. Monyere spoke about the reports that were generated during COVID. And to zero in on the hospitality one, if you haven't read those reports, please have a look at them. I hope they are available on the Resilience Center's website. Some very key issues came out of those in our sector. We established that 40% of all the money that we receive is spent on payroll and related. So that's huge because it's a labor-intensive business. 25% would go to the value chain, the mandazis, the Coca-Colas, the milk, vegetables, and so on and so forth. Then we had a component that went into utilities. So we realized that we're actually a large power consumer as an industry. The profitability aspect was just about 25% for a very efficient operation. So it showed us that we actually cut across all sectors. Then without tourism, all these other sectors would start crumbling. I remember Farmer's Choice almost shutting down because most of their products are actually consumed in hotels. The third thing that we learned is that we can be self-sufficient as a country because during lockdown, we actually did sustain ourselves as a country. There was no external funding coming in. There was no money flowing in. And we could be self-reliant, contrary to popular belief. On the marketing side, we realized that our domestic and regional market is actually bigger than we thought. We realized that we can build a tourism base on domestic and regional. And COVID is the best thing that happened to the domestic market because the domestic market responded to the suggestions that had been given since 2008. So we saw an increase in domestic numbers, an increase in regional numbers. If you take the 5 East African countries without putting in DR Congo and South Sudan and probably Ethiopia in a few years, we have a potential of 20 million tourists intra East Africa. For marketers, you look at your share. If our share is 10%, then 2 million already at home without even going far. But having said that, we also cannot ignore the international market because of our anchor products of beach and safari. If you take a product like Coca-Cola, there's so much associated with Coca-Cola. You have Sprite, Fanta, juice. I think they even tried to sell coffee at some time or tea. But the anchor product is still Coca-Cola, and it's still their product that they push. It's a product they refresh, and it's when it comes to the end of the product cycle, they refresh it again and again and again, and that's what we should do. So the international market is important to us, and we've talked about this with Madam CS. We still need our international market, and for them to come in, we need air access. We've had this conversation to try and encourage as many airlines as we can to bring us customers, particularly the ones that were coming here before 2019. So those were the lessons. I was not asked to give a way forward. I have it. We can discuss it another time. So let me stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let us appreciate him again as he comes down.
Emphasizing the word brief, so I'll probably take like a minute or two. I think for us, resilience has taken a very different meaning, because our first real interaction with that word probably came with COVID. Before that, it was business as usual. You wake up, tourists are here, take them to Mara, take them wherever they're going. So there was no need for resilience. Things were working until COVID. So that's the first time we really interacted, and we asked, what is this word resilience? And for me, I think I've come to appreciate it as the need for the destination to be able to withstand adversity, bounce back from difficult situations, and grow. Withstand, bounce, and grow. So we're still figuring out where we are. I think we have bounced back, or bouncing back, but we still need to grow. And that's where Madam PS, that monkey is going to fall on your back as CS. And two lessons we've learned during that period is that, one, staff, as Michael said. The staff, I think, turned out to be our biggest resource. If we didn't have staff who allowed us to do the things we did, this industry would not be standing today, because they did not stand for their rights. We did some crazy things. I mean, you drop salaries. Where else do you do that? You send people home unpaid leave. How are they supposed to survive? But they allowed that to happen. And because of that, the industry is able to be bouncing back. So one lesson that we learned is, as an industry, we must put systems that allow us to take care of these people when things go south. Because when we need to recover, we will need them. But maybe during the time we were doing drastic measures, we may have compromised them in a way that they cannot come back. So we need to find out, how do we take care of these important people when things go south, if they ever go south? The second lesson we learned was partnerships. If it was not for the partnerships that we had during that time, we would not have survived. Some of those partnerships were formed at very short notice. Dr. Munyiri and her team did a wonderful job in the technical assessments and reports, and we all came together and we go through this. But is that a partnership that will be coming together when there's a crisis, or is it something that we can entrench now under your leadership and make it really grow to other things and not just crisis? And as I summarize, I said I'll be very brief. I would like the lessons we learned from COVID to help us to grow to be a better destination. Kenya has always been, Madam, I've been in tourism for 32 years, 6 of which was spent as a senior economist in the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. So I can say that the destination has been blessed for very many years on sometimes what we call autopilot. Things just happen, and they happen well. But we now need to take charge of the destiny and say, what systems are we putting in place to ensure that adversity comes, we bounce back and grow? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kai.
Was highly privileged during the COVID-19 pandemic to work very closely with the office of Dr. Munyiri at the GTRCM as we tried to decipher what was happening in the industry during the crisis that was unprecedented. And we began our journey by trying to understand what is going on in the hearts and minds of the travelers. And we wanted to assess the traveler readiness, the traveler confidence, so that we could bounce back. And so we embraced research, we embraced data, we collaborated closely with Amadeus, with IATA, and with Travelport, who are our global distribution systems service providers. And it's from there we were able to garner a lot of insights from the data that was showing us what was happening in terms of booking searches and booking confirmations. And by leveraging the extensive research document that Dr. Munyiri facilitated, we were able to understand what what were the underlying fears and concerns for travelers that were keeping them away from being able to come back and travel. And some of the key limitations was the anxiety around the mobility restrictions, anxiety on the COVID-19 traveler protocols, and also anxiety around the rule on quarantine. And so leveraging this information, the travel agents were able to engage with various embassies and missions that are represented in Kenya to build up profiles for each country to understand the COVID-19 traveler protocol requirements for those states. And this enabled us to put in place packages and to work very closely with the 14 multinational airlines that are currently flying into Kenya into enabling travelers to travel at ease. So it was a collaborative effort, and it started with the customer first. Madam CS, COVID enabled us to divorce our legacy mindset, and it catapulted us to developing an abundance mindset that is based on agility. And today, Madam CS, Kata continues to work driven by data, driven by research, and also driven by traveler trends that enables us to plan for the future. And it is based on this success and reliance on data, research, and insights that the travel industry, that is a sub-travel sector, has managed to recover back to the 2019 air ticket sales volumes. We, in January, achieved $512 million in air ticket sales, which represents 3% recovery over and above the 2019 threshold. So, Madam CS, we want to emphasize that research, data, and insights are very key to enabling the entire travel industry to catapult forward. And also to just mention that the recovery of aviation capacity has also been very key, and it is imperative that as Kenya, we enable airlines to fly in and out of Kenya without restrictions, because that additional capacity is what allows more passengers to arrive into this destination and to contribute value into the entire value chain. Thank you very much, Madam CS, and we look forward to strengthening this collaboration. And our ask, Madam CS, is for a provision of a budget within GTCRM to allow us to gain access to data from our partners, IATA, Amadeus, and Travelport, that will give us insights into how the customer evolution as far as travel is shaping globally, so that as Kenya, we can leverage those insights to inform our strategies for building more resilience for the sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Getting briefer and briefer, so I might just introduce myself and leave. But I want to leave you with three things. Resilience requires focus. And one of the things at Ecotourism Kenya that we focus on is the impact of any initiative that we will put in place. And the trifecta, the golden trifecta that has withstood the test of time is people, planet, and profit. Whenever you focus on just one, then we lose out. If we just look at getting numbers for the sake of increasing numbers, we forget about the environment. We forget about. We don't focus on the trifecta of people, planet, and profit. I think one of the things that we've been able to do, and we're very pleased to have done, is work in collaboration with public sector. We've worked very closely with KTB, with TF, with TRA, with the ministry itself, and we've gotten a lot of support in understanding what sustainability is all about. We like to distill it to responsible tourism, and there are 5 things that we need to look at. Climate change, crazy conversations around carbon markets. We have a new dialogue, we have new discussions that are coming in. How do we navigate this? How do we understand it? Of what importance is it to us? And then there's global events like COVID. which have led us to partnerships that we haven't had before. How do we escalate these partnerships? How do we take them to the next level? How do we have a permanence? Are some transient? Communities, that's the people aspect. How are we dealing with the communities who are hosting all these experiences? One of the key things that KTB mentioned is that a key aspect of the traveler's experience is nature-based. And the nature is not out in some bush alone. That bush is owned. It's owned by a community who has leased it out for a set number of years. How do we deal with the communities? What conversations are we having? What policies are protecting these communities? How are we growing their involvement, their real involvement in the tourism value chain? And also looking at technology. My fellow CEOs have mentioned the uptake of data management. What are we looking at? Well, how are we interpreting data? Data collection for the sake of data collection is not effective and efficient. We need to understand what aspects we're collecting data on. And that's why I'm very pleased to have worked with Dr. Munyiri and her team, because they understand the underpinnings of data collection and data management. And if they have a permanent way of collecting this data, then we're able to continuously report on our international requirements. We've signed so many treaties. How do we report? Every time you look at tourism, there's no metric for the impact on tourism. There's no metric for what we need, how we need to develop policy based on the data. So how are we building that whole data portfolio? And the last one is inclusivity. Whose voices are forming the discussions we're having? Who is at the table? Who is in the room? I think the heart of inclusivity needs to be comprehensive, and it needs to be worn by a lot more people. Are we passing new hats to new discussants? And are we forming a bigger table that will make our policies our own? Tourism is something we inherited. Africans we traveled, we moved as communities, but we didn't travel to, Kisi will not go to Kakamega just to stay there and see people. That was not a thing that was done. So this is a different metric. How do we then become the authors of our own story, so that we're not listening to what the international voices are saying, but rather we're saying as a country and as a region, this is what we want to do and this is how we want to take things forward. I think Ecotourism Kenya has been very privileged to work with very strong partners. And one of the things we believe is African solutions for African issues. So let's remember the trifecta: people, planet, and profit. We don't sacrifice any part of that trifecta, because if we do, then we will not have resilience. Thank you very much.
Indeed, it's a great honor for me to be able to share with you our experience as NMK, the National Museums of Kenya. The NMK, like we refer to, relies entirely on tourism for a lot of our resources. And I remember in 2020, when the first case of COVID-19 was reported in the country, we were having a conference at the NMK headquarters in Nairobi. And the government gave a directive that all public gatherings should be closed down. And I remember all of us hurriedly closing down that particular science expo. It was really, really a shocking moment for us, especially because we rely so much on tourism sector for our revenue collections. So we had to go back to the drawing board as management and ask ourselves some very hard questions. What can we do going forward to ensure that we can survive in the changing world? And this really called for a lot of thinking. And one of the issues that we thought about as an institution is how best can we do to diversify our products. We ask ourselves, what can we do to stop over-relying on foreign tourists? And we told ourselves that we must think about how we look at ourselves, what we have as an institution. Referring to the Bible, when God asked Moses, what do you have in your hand? We ask ourselves, what do we have in our hands? we have some wonderful collections. So we thought about how best we can also use all those collections to really begin to engage with different stakeholders. And that's why we also began to become much more digital. Digitalization become a key thing in our business as an institution. We began to digitize our collections. We also began to go more virtual. And in fact, when Dr. Munyeri came to us, we thought that was a wonderful time for us to begin working together to digitize our collections, to begin to develop virtual museums, and also begin to engage our different stakeholders across the country, but also outside the country. So it gave us a chance for us to ask ourselves, what can we do? How can we stop over-relying on tourists going to our sites across the country? And we had to do that painfully. So in fact, going forward, we've been able to really appreciate the wonderful heritage that we have as an institution that we're taking care of on behalf of all of us here and on behalf of humanity, and ask ourselves, how can we best utilize those collections? And we also learned the need for us to engage different stakeholders in the country. For a long time, most of our guests, most of our visitors in our museums across the country were not young people. Rarely did we have young people visit our museums, but I can tell you that in the last 1 year, the number of the youth visiting our museums has really grown tremendously. So because we began to engage with the youth in a big way through social media, through all kinds of forums. So I can tell you that going forward, we expect the numbers to grow even much more. So we, as an institution, really began to embrace technology, but we also began to expand our target groups. And also schools, we also came up with different programs that enabled us to reach different schools across the country, because also schools form a key market or a key stakeholder in the number of visitors who come to museums. So overall, we had to really go back to the drawing board and ask ourselves, what do we have in our hands, and how can we use that to promote the number of visitors into our museums. And again, also, we also began to engage much more with different stakeholders in the country. Kenya Tourism Board and also TPF has been very supportive of us. Dr. Munyeri and all of us have been working together very closely. So we've really forged wonderful partnerships that we believe going forward should be able to help the NMK raise more revenue for our different needs. So, Madam CS, going forward, you see much more partnerships between ourselves and different departments in your ministry, and I'm really happy that the President, Honorable Dr. William Ruto, put us together with tourism, wildlife, and heritage, and now we are able to really speak to one another in one particular house with our leadership, the leadership of our Madam CS. So we intend to really talk to one another, talk about different programs and different products that we can package to promote tourism in this country. And but according to us, we believe that this country has so much in terms of our heritage. We have rich prehistorical and historical heritage that all of us working together, we should be able to really use those different forms of heritage to mark tourism in this country. And we talk about the different fossils, we talk about the monuments across the country. So all of us working together, I think we should all package ourselves. Aside from the wildlife and the beaches, I think we need to really so much cash on the heritage of this country in marketing tourism across the country and across the world. So those are really few remarks I would like to really urge all of us going forward to partner with the different stakeholders. And
I've warned many times that when you get the podium, you talk too much. So let me stick to what I've written. Otherwise, I'll talk for too long. What have I written? We are talking about resilience, and I'm glad colleagues have really emphasized that part of it. But as we sit here and as we go home, we need to ask ourselves very simple questions. Resilience to what? You can answer that question, then we know that you know what you want to be resilient on. So resilience to what? What is it that is there? Did you really feel that you need to build yourself some safety measures, mechanisms that you can overcome it? Resilience where? So we need to know where is that challenge so that you can deal with it. Resilience when? Just from the COVID period, so there was a period of time when this really affected us. And how do we do that resilience? And asking myself those questions immediately threw me into thinking about what is it that could challenge us. We have just come from a period of drought, and we are moving into a period of floods. And therefore, I know that we are suffering from what we call hydrometeorological hazards in this country. Very severe indeed. If they didn't wipe the wildlife with if your wildlife did not disappear, I saw some crocodiles have disappeared in one of the lakes in the Rift Valley. But we know the cause of that. And we also know that that cause is really affecting even communities. And that product, wildlife, is really affected by hydrometeorological variables. So we need really to figure out what is it we need to do so that we can secure our environment to be stable, even though we are having climate change challenges. The other thing I wrote down was diseases and pandemics. Basically, biological related influences in our lives. Of course, if there is a pronouncement like it was from Tanzania that there is a particular disease that is there from Tanzania, immediately that draws travel advisories, don't go there. So we need really to be on our lookout and have systems that are able to capture these things in good time to arrest them before they cause a challenge in tourism. And I know there is a peers in charge of tourism should know that for people to come here, they really need to know that they are safe in the context of diseases. And the third thing I wrote was issues of security and safety. And issues of security and safety covers many dimensions. We know about terrorism, but we also know about banditry that we are facing now. We actually know about burglary and banditry that also faces us. And we know about traffic accidents and things like that within our setting. So there are many things about that really challenges us. And then knowing that this is there, one of the ladies really spoke something that touched me, that we need data about it. We need information that we can use to model complexities of the interactions of systems with human beings and with what generates our income, generates us income. We need modeling that can do that. And we need systems that can enable us to do that modeling. And it just told me that our interest should be to be able to convert matter into information. So we have tourism, which is, or wildlife, which is matter. We need to convert that into information. But we also need to convert information into matter. If we know about the challenges that can face wildlife, then we know how to convert that information into the safety of our wildlife or the tourists for that matter. And to finish, really, it's about us then building systems, and therefore, as the chair of the board, the Global Tourism Board, our interest is really to build systems that can enable people get this data, model this data, and provide information that can offer solutions in good time. That you can go a one-stop to go to, and you are, or even if you don't go there, you actually have the information that there is a risk to our wildlife in the Masai Mara. We don't think about it, but a flood in Masai Mara actually kills animals. Just a flood. But the drought is worse. So what do we do and how do we manage this? And we look forward to really working under your ministry. The center is yours. And working under your ministry to just ensure that this center delivers and offers information that can safeguard our tourism sector resources. Thank you very much.
And the Vice Chancellor, Professor Paul Wainaina. Good afternoon. Let me also welcome you to Kenyatta University and to this forum. We know that having the Global Tourism Center at KU is an opportunity to create new knowledge, new opportunities, to reinvigorate the destinations through learning from our past emergencies and from working together as stakeholders. So as a division, we want to welcome all of you to work with us at Kenyatta University through research so that we can generate new knowledge to be prepared for future problems in regard to tourism and crisis management. So Kenyatta University welcomes all stakeholders to work together with us in research. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to welcome our Vice Chancellor, Professor Paul Wainaina, to address you.
For the CEOs who are actually working in the industry, at least to meet and to know more about the center that we have. But more importantly, is to meet the CS in a place where the issue of the industry are discussed at another level. Honorable Penina Malonza, our Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage. I also want to acknowledge Mr. John Lorotua, which is the Principal Secretary, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage, State Department of Tourism and Heritage. We know our CS that Kenyatta University is very strong. You have 3 departments, and all those departments are very strong in Kenyatta University. I also want to acknowledge the few members of management who are here, and also the lecturers, those people who have been working to make sure that we have this event. And we want to say this. This is a very good opportunity that we have in Kenyatta University to host you. I know we have been meeting elsewhere, even met in outside the country, in Jamaica. We also met in Mombasa, but this is a very important day for us, where we have been talking about a center which actually we needed to tell you that the starting of this center was really a visit in Jamaica, where our president was able to discuss the issue of tourism, the kind of diverse problems that the industry experiences from time to time, and how to mitigate these problems. And that is why our CS, the person who is the patron of this center is none other than the president of this country. So it is very, very serious. The center, as we have been told, is actually gazetted, and we take it very, very seriously. We are also saying that all those who are in the industry, who have been working with us, maybe individually, probably they have never met. And it is very important that they are here. You have heard what they are saying. And actually they are talking to you when you are in the Kenyatta University in the center. And this is the center that is going to make sure that we try to address some of the issues that have been affecting us. It is an idea that was discussed elsewhere, and we felt there are so many adversities, there are so many things happening and affect this industry that is so important. And yet, some of those things happening, by doing research, by looking at what has been happening, it might help us to see what could we do. For example, it is possible to know in 3 years' time we might have drought. If we have drought, then in the industry, what do we need to do? Or looking at our history in terms of climate change, what can we do? We can actually predict in 5 years, we are likely to have something like COVID. It might come back. And therefore, we are saying this center is able to, first of all, have data that we can use to save the industry. 2, we can actually have something happening to the industry. We may not have data, but we can use examples of what happened at a certain time and how we behaved. In other words, be ready for adversities, cyclones, landslides, COVID, and other maladies that actually affect the industry. So, the reason why we are meeting here is to exchange ideas and to know that there is a center that needs to be facilitated. We use our knowledge at the university, particularly research in various areas, and come up with mitigation efforts that you'll be ready. So part of the reason why I took you to the center, CS, is to see that really we are barely existing. I know you commented, you said it looks bare. The reason why it is bare is because we need to work together. The university have people who can work on all those issues. We have the capacity, but we need assistance in terms of maybe funding of some of the things that we want to do. Again, we cannot do it alone. We are also saying the sector, and they have said here, they were affected differently, but they also have certain things that they can do to actually contribute to the center being very strong so that eventually it is able to deliver. So we are saying we are going to be strong if we are going to work together. I know there are some areas where we have to compete, but we have seen for us to be ready to actually protect our industry, and we have to do that, then all of us are expected to work together. There is what the university can actually produce. I have said we have the capacity. If you are talking about people predicting weather, we are there. If we are looking at maybe, people looking at when are we likely to have an epidemic. We have actually what it takes. For those people who don't know, we have a very strong school of medicine, people who can do that. We have a very strong school of public health. And these are the people who can take data. So, all what I'm emphasizing is that we are here to acknowledge that for the kind of problems that we have in the industry, this center, if it is well equipped and we work together with all those CEOs and the people behind, it is possible for us to be able, when something like, COVID comes, we are ready for that. We don't want to be caught off guard. And actually, at the university, we are sure that if we take that center seriously, we equip it, we employ specialists to work in various areas, actually we'll be able to do that. And it is important to note that this was the second center that was created. There are many coming. We are still very far, but I think for me, today is a very, very important day. We are meeting with our CS. We are also meeting with the stakeholders, all these CEOs, and we are all interested parties. So I don't want to say more because Dr. Munyeri has said, what probably I should have said, and she has said it in a better way. But we are here to acknowledge that we have a facility that if we have the equipment, we have the people passionate to actually take up the task. I think for us, in the next probably 5 years, we'll be talking about being able to protect our industry. And as somebody has just said, this industry probably depends very much on people coming from outside. But we are saying, can we have homegrown way of solving our problem so that we are not borrowing. So with those very few remarks, I want to stop there, and I take the program back to our the person who is leading us. But all what I'm emphasizing is that today is a very important day when we are meeting our CS and all those people who are in the industry. They are not just there, they are interested parties. When things happen very badly, they are all affected. And therefore, we are saying, working together, we will be able to support the center and we will be able actually to protect our industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor Kenyatta University. Let us give the Vice...
Anthony Yakovo Macharia. I'm here representing the CEO, Eastern Africa, Mr. Clifford Okembo, who could not attend because he's also engaged in another very engaging forum in Mombasa. But he sent me greetings to Kenyatta University. And on top of that, he said that we are very grateful at Eastern Africa to be given the opportunity to implement this inventory project that was funded by the tourism fund, the TPF, through Kenyatta University. the Vice Chancellor, I also want to confirm that I am also an alumni of this university. And I also want to confirm that this is the first university in Africa to uptake an offer that was given by S3 Inc., because S3 Eastern Africa is a distributor of S3 Inc., that is global, which is based in California. And this is the only university that first in 2013 uptook the offer for the 100 university license for GIS. And that GIS center is domiciled in the School of Environment. That's where Professor Onywere also is domiciled. And at that time, when I was a student here, a master student here, I also got the opportunity of implementing that GIS lab. And therefore, that is when my able Professor Onywere, who was my supervisor, was able to pick me and recommended me to go and work at S3 Eastern Africa. On top of that, it is at that time, when we were implementing that GIS lab, that the program was to start with both the students and also the lecturers and the professors to build capacity for them to understand what they will be teaching using GIS. I want to confirm that at that time, Dr. Esther Munyere was a student of GIS in that lab. You can see how opportunity uptaking are very important, because she saw the right at that time and the opportunity. She sat in my class together with the professor, because I was a student and also a trainer. And I taught her GIS, and she took it passionately, and that is why we are here. Within her center, that is, she's the director now, she doesn't talk any other language other than the geospatial language. If you listen to her and the professor, they will always mention about GIS, something to do with the GIS mapping and all that. And therefore, we at S3 Eastern Africa, when we were offered this opportunity to implement this project, we were grateful, and we are grateful today that we have been invited today to present to you the work that we did, the inventory that we were able to do. I also want to mention here, Madam CS, that we did not do it alone. All the key stakeholders, Dr. Mandhi, the KTB, the Commonwealth, I mean, there are many, I cannot mention all, but they were very instrumental, because within a record 6 months, we were able to implement this. And Madam CS, I want to confirm that all the resources that were given to Kenyatta University were well utilized, and the client got the value for money. I was the project manager for this, and therefore I can confirm that. And I also want to thank Kenyatta University through the VC that they paid on time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that.
You can also be able to view the signature experiences that are happening across the country. Let's say you want to have the experience of a lifetime. You want to experience luxury, you want to experience something uniquely Kenyan. You can also be able to find this information here, where it's happening, and a brief summary, such that you as a tourist, you don't need to know much about Kenya. You just have to have the application ready, and then after that, you can be able to explore freely. We've also been able to segment the application so that you can be able to focus on a particular itinerary, such as our friends from the National Museums of Kenya. They are really keen on heritage. So when you come here, you can be able to explore the different heritage sites. You can be able to visit the museums and learn more. In case you also want to know about our history, you can also click on this and learn about something such as the heroes who fell during the World Wars, World War I, World War II, and where all these activities were happening. Remember, we are taking a map-centric approach. So with this application, you can be able to navigate to all the different sites, all the attractions, and what you are interested in being able to view. This is just one of the pages. We've also been able to focus on culture because this is something uniquely Kenyan. You can be able to learn about the art and fashion in Kenya, the cuisines, the Kenyan villages. All this is information that you'll be able to even explore on the map and learn what is happening. You want to know where the Ogiek are, you can be able to see that information and also get a brief description. Then we also have the events, because events are a key aspect of the tourism sector. You want to be able to know, let's say, what is happening in January, February, March, and which category is this in. So you can be able to click on that and know that in January you can go do deep sea fishing. You can also visit Ololo Organic Farm and be able to interact with them. This also we've been able to categorize further. In case you're a thrill seeker and you want to have the adventure of a lifetime, you can be able to come here and maybe go paragliding in Kerio Valley. Maybe in case you also want to be able to experience culture, you want to know when the Lamu Yoga Festival is happening, you can come here and see it's happening in February, and you can be able to go and visit that and have the experience of a lifetime. So for this application, what we've done is try to make it as simple as possible, such that the user is able to interact with it in as few clicks as possible, and we can be able to consolidate all the data that has been collected across the country and give you the experience of a lifetime. You can be able to live, experience, and explore Kenya. I'm going to cut it at that, but we're going to allow you to explore further and interact with the application. But our promise to you as developers is that we'll continue building and supporting the industry. Thank you.
That if we have a diversity, something that is going to affect or is likely to affect the industry, either we have some knowledge from whatever happened before, or at least we can use the data that we have of a similar happening and be able to ride and make sure that we are not terribly affected. So it is my humble duty to request our CS to come and address us. She has listened to us.
University, the director of the Resilience Center, and the council, together led by the chairperson, all CEOs of state agencies, all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. God is good, and all the time. You look tired a bit, so can we wave in there? Okay. God is good, and all the time, and that is? Thank you very much. The Honorable Cabinet Secretary is expected to in another meeting, and therefore, in the interest of time, I will not be able to make a speech, but I'll just make two statements. Number one, Honorable Vice Chancellor, to tell you I'm proud to be here because I'm an alumni of Kenyatta University, having undertaken my degree, my first degree, and my second degree in Kenyatta University. So I am at home. Actually, I know every corner. If you are to ask me to name all the hostels and all the routes to KM and every part and every section and every area, I know. So I'm indeed very proud to be able to come as I accompany the Cabinet Secretary for this Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center. Statement number two is to appreciate the Vice Chancellor and your team, together with the Council of the Resilience Center, for what you have done the moment that this Resilience Center was placed in this university. I want to say, may God bless you. Statement number three, and the last one. As the person, as you indicated, Professor, You know, when the Cabinet Secretary makes directions, particularly related to the State Department for Tourism, to all the sagas that are under the State Department for Tourism. And by the way, even our private sector, we have a very strong team of the private sector that is working together with us, including our, then we also have the Tourism Police Unit. I can see Bwana Paul Mayo there. When the Cabinet Secretary makes a pronouncement, the person who is supposed to run very fast, 100 meters, and ensure that the directions that she has given are implemented, of course, is standing here, Bwana John Ololtua. So I want to confirm to all of you that whatever the Cabinet Secretary will direct, especially in relation to what we can do to be able to strengthen this resilience center and to be able to do all that appertains to improving it and making sure that tourism is sustainable, we are going to be able to do that. There is a roadmap the Cabinet Secretary will be able to inform you. And I'm indeed so happy, Madam CS, that the mapping of the tourism products and niches that we are talking about is already at an advanced stage here. And so I'm sure the bigger vision that you have, including the Royal Tour and many, many others that you have, we already have a strong team here. We have the center, we have the private sector, we have all the organs that are going to support us. And therefore, with those very many remarks, or very few for that matter, I want therefore to, I know we have been really seated for a long time, isn't it? So that our minds are fresh, I want to request all of us to be upstanding as we welcome our Cabinet Secretary.
CEOs of ministries, sagas, and ministry staff present today, all lecturers and management staff of KU, other CEOs present today, our fourth estate team, our students, I can see they have disappeared, but wherever they are, tell them that I acknowledged them in my speech. I know it is an afternoon, and I must say that I'm very proud and happy to be here today. Really proud of Professor and what he's been able to do at the university, and more so at the Global Resilience Center. Part of this morning, I was taken for a tour at the Vice Chancellor's office, where I noted that indeed this university, by the leadership that you've given him, that is embraced tourism to the depth, and more so the heritage that this country has. I have seen quite a number of wood carvings, stone carvings, metal carvings of elephants, I didn't see giraffe, lions, and quite a number of the wildlife that we have in Kenya. And indeed, his office is a marketing, I don't know whether I can say marketing hall or auditorium for anybody who visits there. Little did I know, even the shirt that he is wearing now had the animals. I've just noted that when he was addressing us. And I want to confirm that he did. Kenyatta, when I was seated there, personally, I didn't come to this college, but I schooled at University of Nairobi for my 4 degrees that I have, all of them at University of Nairobi. And I want to confirm very well, when I was seated there, 2 universities came to my mind. One is the university where I am today, Kenyatta University. And looking at Kenyatta University and the origin of its name, it comes from the first president, I guess so, of this country. And again, going back to my home university, the University of Nairobi, it took the name of the city of cool waters under the sun, and the capital city of Kenya. And I want to start by a very simple statement, that as a minister or as a cabinet secretary of tourism, I'll be taking very keen and next step in making those two universities heritage universities of Kenya. By the fact of the name they took, the centrality of the meaning of that name, and the history that accompanies those names. And I want to say, for sure, Kenyatta University has lived the name of heritage from the Vice Chancellor's office, and I'm sure if I interact with your corridors and streets, I'll still see more. And from the welcome remarks, I can tell you, I listened to Professor Onyer. Sometimes he really confuses me with this scientific language. When he talks about the racing waters, I understand. But when he talks of confusion of, I don't know, he just takes me to science. And I want to say that I think I've learned a lot. And thank you very much for earlier presenters, really in your remarks. You connected very much with the recent time and the recent topics that we are discussing in the field of tourism, but also in the globe. Allow me also to appreciate the great presentation of our students, and the particular one, Paul Manana. First, I was impressed by the whole team when they sang the song I would call today our heritage song, Kenya Inchi Yangu. And I listened to them go around the country mentioning every product that we have in every corner of this country. And indeed, I said, Kenya is very rich with heritage. I also listened to Paul Manana and watched him sing with passion and energy, even though he was unable to see all of us, but he could connect with us at his heart and his mind as he blowed us with the words that some could only understand the first song, but not the second one. And that led me to a question that I posed to the Vice Chancellor, whether he was a Kenyan. Because what I heard, I didn't know the last language he was speaking. But how beautiful was that song? What energy that he put on that song. For me, it was so amazing to see the talent that he has. And indeed, to retreat back and ask myself, how many other young people in this country we have, enabled differently, and have talents that can blow this world? That's a question I would want to leave into this hall as we think about people, the planet, and the profit, as our CEO has mentioned there. I'd like to thank you for the warm welcome you have extended to me and my team as we visit Kenyatta University and the Global Center of Resilience in this university and the Kenyan Global Resilience Center. Indeed, this is a great university, as I've said, with a rich history in academia, research and outreach activities that are well captured in your tagline of serving humanity, transforming higher education to enhance lives. It is therefore a great pleasure that we at the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage are associated with this great university and its leadership through Professor Paul Wainaina, whom I knew during our our Jamaica tour, but before then had met him in one of the hotels you have in Coast, and we had a very interactive session as he took me through the history of the Resilience Center. Ladies and gentlemen, the tourism industry is of great importance to our country, earning this country lots of revenue, and to be precise, 10% of the GDP of this country comes from tourism, and employment which today stands at 1 out of every 4 jobs given, 1 is in travel and tourism industry, and image management among other benefits. This means that the sector must be nurtured well for it to continue thriving. The resilience of the sector is therefore of paramount importance. In the last year, Kenya recorded a remarkable growth after devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I want to appreciate all the learnings that have been given here, because I would hear every one of us go back to COVID-19 pandemic. But allow me to say, even though the effects were so huge, we have had quite a number of disruptions and pandemics and disasters in this country. And I want all of us to be prepared, not only for disasters of this huge magnitude, but also to think of the many droughts we've had in this country. We talk about them when they're happening, and once they disappear, we forget about them. Think about many floods that we had in this country, including Kenyans, like the lady who's always talked about Kenya, Sirikari, Saidia. And at that point, we acknowledged floods were real, but after they were gone, and after we forgot about our voice, we forgot about everything. What else do I mention? Think about the Westgate ambush that we had. We never talked loudly about it. It was an insecurity issue. We talked about security that time. We saw the country come together. We saw most of the agencies in the government leave their asylum mentalities and collaborate with their other agencies to work towards eliminating Al-Shabaab in the country during that time. But yet again, we forgot about it. It is today that we have come together, not only to remark on the pandemic, but to remark on many disasters that Kenya has gone through. When I assumed to power, and let me not use power, you know, I've been a politician and I campaigned and became something. When I assumed to this seat, after being appointed as cabinet secretary, I think I was ushered in by a disaster that looks like it's disappearing, the great and prolonged drought that we had in this country. There's so many wildlife disappear and die because of lack of water and pasture. And on the other side, the people were crying because of lack of food. And even today, the discussion at the table of the government and of cabinets are sitting is all the whole issue of importing maize, rice, sugar, and everything. Allow me to say that this is one critical meeting point. As like-minded segments of our society brought together to rethink our future and the disruptions that we had, even as we establish the global center and as we strengthen it today, I would urge you to think and have a conversation with yourself and ask this vital question: for how long are we going to talk about disruptions, disasters, year after year? We look for funds, but we never look for a permanent solution. I wish we can begin thinking about permanent solutions as we ask ourselves, for how long is Kenya going to cry? For how long is Africa going to cry because of the common disasters that are very cyclonic in nature? We appreciate the research policy, and allow me to say that this pandemic told us lessons. We have all said about, we've all talked about that the lessons that we learned. But the most critical lesson was the lessons about resilience. And I want to connect resilience with sustainability. These are two words that look very close and sometimes used interchangeably, but they have a different meaning. And I believe where we are, we need to embrace the two for survival. And the recovery strategies, I'm proud to note that the Global Tourism Resilience and Management and the Crisis Management Center East Africa, based at Kenyatta University, participated in formulating some of these strategies after 2020. We appreciate the research policy documents developed by the center since its inception, such as the impact of COVID-19 on tourism sector, measures taken and recovery strategies, domestic tourism recovery strategy, product improvement and diversification recovery strategy, and the digitization of tourism in Kenya recovery strategy. These documents, which were developed in collaboration with key tourist stakeholders, guided the industry through the pandemic and quick bounce back after the pandemic. We also note gladly that the center is supporting the private sector and NGOs in research and policy initiatives in areas such as women, economic development, PCR situation, impact of hotels in Kenya, travel readiness of Kenya for Kenya, and sustainable tourism in Kenya. The current government emphasizes the development of the sector through collaboration. It is in this regard we seek to incorporate all stakeholders into a framework that will enhance the resilience of the sector. This day is a testimony to that such collaboration. It is not often that the tourism, private sector, academia, and the public sector converge, but today we've done so. We all work in isolation at times, which duplicates efforts and resources. And allow me to say, as I watched the young engineer walk us through the presentation on digitization of our culture and products that we have, I whispered to, and I think it's the peers who whispered to me, and say that we launched a technical committee yesterday to work on this, and you can see we are already in it already. So there's a lot of duplication when we do not know what each other is doing, either in the private or in academics or in the government sector. As we appreciate the work done by the center, may this event be a stepping stone for our future engagements as an industry. Ladies and gentlemen, institutional arrangements are one of the most important and useful key pillars for managing crisis resilience in tourism destination worldwide. Consequently, the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage seeks to strengthen this collaboration of all tourism industry stakeholders, networking across the various institutions, academia, and the industry, ensuring resilience-based governance of the tourism sector. I appreciate the work that is spearheaded by the center and various stakeholders in mapping the culture and heritage products and experiences in Kenya. Cultural and heritage tourism resources form the bulk of travel around the globe. In our country, this is not yet well harnessed, hence the value of this project in contributing to the resilience of the sector through tourism product diversification. I also love the progress you've made so far with the minimal resources you have as Kenyatta University. And thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. I was able to go through and see what you have. And thank you for giving a lot of furniture to this center, yet is a borrowed baby from somewhere that you may not even know very well the father. Therefore, I want to appreciate the great work that you've done and how gracious you've been to give a bearing and a rest to our dear director, even as she struggles to come out. Resource mobilization is key in ensuring that such initiatives thrive. I appreciate the resource challenges that are there, but as a government, we will endeavor to support this center. We hope to ensure that there is a budgetary allocation for this center so that it is well anchored from the financial resource perspective, in addition to the material resources offered by KU so far. Finally, our presence here today is part of the greater strategy to ensure that as a government we support initiatives geared towards enhancing the resilience of our tourism sector. On my part, as a Cabinet Secretary, I commit to lobbying the Cabinet to enhance the resource allocation for the sector and the center in order to return tourism to its historical position #1 of foreign exchange earnings in the country. Thank you very much. Allow me to... Once a politician, forever politician. And once a teacher, forever teacher. I look forever teacher. I also watched as the Vice Chancellor talk to you. And I love the humor of this old man. You know the way he talks. He had notes, but he never read them. That tells you that his gray hair is not just coloring of his head, but it is the wisdom that he has and acquired over time of his life. And therefore, I want to appreciate and mention that we will embrace collaboration. And I want to say something. I don't know who spoke about it, about competition. We are not in competition as academia, as private sector or government, but we will embrace complementing each other so that we can take Kenya to the level where we ought to be. Allow me to say that as a ministry, we've embraced diversification of our products. And I watched most of the presentation, the earlier presentation, talking about the beach and the safari, the very two products that Kenya has been known by. But we're moving away, not really away to leave beach and safari alone, but we are saying as much as we have those as our anchor products for this country, we will embrace culture, we will embrace agro-tourism, which is the farm, the beautiful plantation we have for tea and coffee. Those are potential touristic attraction in this country. We will embrace our culture, the diversity of it. I listened to the presentation and I heard about the cultural festivals, and yes, we are developing a calendar that will showcase, and I think you're already in it, that will tell any tourist that is coming to this country what is happening in any part of this country in terms of cultural festivals. But beyond cultural festivals, culture is our way of life. And I could tell you this because I'm an anthropologist. It's our way of life. The way we talk, the way we live, what we eat, the practices, the tools we use, and everything. And therefore, we will draw rich in our heritage and in our culture. And that's why you hear the museums talk of the artifacts, the collections they had from this country. And so we're going to diversify a lot. As you are aware today, the traveler of today, if you look at the demographics, it will tell you the traveler of today is that young person that is aged 18 years to 35 years, and they constitute 65% of the global population. And therefore, if we will not take these facts and prepare ourselves with the right products, the right methodology to reach them, and the right channels to impress them and market, then we will miss it. But the baseline of it is research and data. And that's why we are here today. And before I digress to research and data, allow me to say that we are also diversifying to adventure tourism, to sports tourism, to water tourism. What else have I left? MICE, the meetings, the conventions, and that is what is actually attracting so many. And what else have I left? Quite a number of other things. I will tell you as we continue. But I can tell you adventure will come on board, agro-tourism, gastronomy. I think I left that because I'm actually leaving for a gastronomy event this Friday in Western Kenya. So I have to say that gastronomy is the other area that we are going. And if you look at the way we are diversifying our products in this country, we are supporting the Kenya Kwanza manifesto and plan that is looking at the value chain, looking at how that farmer out there can begin, harvesting and gaining something by the canopy of his plantation. Are you getting me? Am I using foreign language here? I'm talking about the canopy of tea leaves. I'm talking about the canopy of our coffee in central Kenya. That is an attraction that can bring somebody. The other day I hosted the ambassador to Kenya from Israel. And one of the things he told me is that we Israelis, we love harvesting oranges. And I want to encourage you, Minister, to encourage your hoteliers to have orchards within the hotels. Because in Israel, when you have that orchard, it's not the orange you sell. It's not the canopy of that orchard. But Israelis, they pay just to have that leisure to pick an orange from a tree and drop it to your basket. And they pay for that. And after that, you can also charge, if they want to eat the orange, another money. So friends and my fellow Kenyans, if this country is going to be unlocked, if this country is going to come out to stand on its feet, then we need to put the right gear for tourism ministry in this country. We have seen Dubai leave mining of oil and turn to tourism. And today, 85% of the revenue is coming from tourism. Think of northern Kenya. The desert there, we've never used it. We've just seen it's a desert, we complain. Think of Mount Kenya right here. Nobody is even bothering. We are proud of talking of how high it is, but we have not seen it as an attraction. And the only mount that has actually 4 layers of, what do they call it? Climate experiences. The savannah, the mountain, and all that. And that is something we can sell and earn a lot of money for this country. What else do I talk about? Friends, every time you go out there, talk positively about your country. Marketing is something else. You could have millions of products like we have today. As a cabinet secretary of tourism, it was until I began going across the country, I realized we had the fishing lions of Lamu, the bathing elephants of Tana River, the baboon meeting in Suswa, and the cradle of humankind in Turkana. So many, millions of products. We cannot compare ourselves with Dubai. Everything is man-made in Dubai, but in Kenya, everything is natural. Think of Equator, that nobody is taking and talking about it. Think of the formation of this land in terms of rifty valleys and mountains, and the craters and the lakes and the rivers and the waterfalls and the birds. Let me not become a singer this afternoon. But allow me to end there and say, indeed, Professor, Vice Chancellor, and your team, we will support you. And I want to repeat my words that I've said in your office when you talked about the struggling that you are experiencing in this center. I want to tell you today, as I look at this global tourism resilience and crisis management center, it's beyond the Ministry of Tourism. It's a country center. It cuts across all the ministries. As you talk of the rising waters and the sagging mountains, it is neither in tourism, but it could be somewhere with the Ministry of Water. When we talk of drought, we're not only looking at the wildlife, but we're also looking at the crop failure and the agonies that the Ministry of Agriculture is going through. And therefore, I want to elevate the center as I lobby to talk with the president of this nation, who is the patron of this center, to uplift this center above tourism, but also maintain us as the chair, because I would love to be the chair of this bigger thing than what I thought. And therefore, thank you very much. I know I must commend Esther, Dr. Esther, for the great work she's done in the Central. I hear her talking of East Africa. When I look at that map, I don't understand whether my geography teacher never told me the right thing. But I can see it's covering East Africa, Central, and the Horn of Africa. And that's how big you are, Esther. That's how much you're doing in these 14 countries. And now there is a position that we took in Jamaica, that Kenya is going to be the hub of Africa. So even as Sierra Leone comes aboard, it's Kenya to direct the whole event. And finally, I have good news. It was our resolution in Jamaica that we will start a fund for resilience so that we can bounce back anytime we have shocks and disruptions in whichever direction. And finally, I am impressed to hear stakeholders talk about the work and the labor force in the industry. Indeed, nobody never thought about them. When you cut their salaries and you told them to go, they never had somebody like in NAT to raise their voices and talk on their behalf. Or even if they had, probably his voice was weak at the time to talk. But it is a great opportunity for us going forward to think about this great labor force that we have. And talking about that, this morning I was talking to one of the consultants and contractors in this country. And he told me how Kenya, in the last World Cup, we missed to take 30,000 workers in tourism to go and be part of the World Cup in terms of serving. Kenya was given that opportunity, but we didn't have that number to send out. Simply because our institutions are not working together with the private and everybody else. Because I believe it was not those numbers we didn't have. It was a matter, because when it came to the ministry, probably they only focused on Utalii that was dying at the time. But we had the Bombers Training Center. I've had hospitality. How many universities are even training that? We had enough labor force, but we never looked outside the box of our jurisdiction. Finally, allow me to say that we look forward to starting that fund and probably seeing a better funded center together with what the ministry will provide. And finally, allow me to announce also that, which day was that? 7th, was it 7th? We declared 17th February. Of course, after being given that go-ahead by United Nations to be the Global Resilient Day, to be celebrated going forward from this year. And we did the first one in Jamaica. And finally, my finalists are so many. This last week we saw something that happened to this country and to our museum, the National Museum of Kenya. We received taxidermy of Sudan, the last male northern white rhino that ever lived. It was the last one. So extinction is real. And we better work hard before we, the human beings, are extinct. But I also want to say that this is an opportunity because, you know, the northern rhinos are from southern Sudan. But that was an opportunity given to Kenya because we took care of the last 4 that were remaining. By the time the extinction sounded very real, and we had to get these 4 from the zoo in Czech Republic to Olopajeta, where 2 died, including this Sudan. And we have the 2 daughters. So they're not yet extinct, but I can tell you they are almost extinct. Because it's a number of counting the days. Because the 2 daughters cannot reproduce because of a problem they have. And therefore, what we try to do is to harvest, you know, the semen and the ovaries from the daughters before they died. But the scientists are still trying. I don't know whether they will be successful, but it is my prayer that they will be successful because that will give honor to this country because our scientists are in forefront as they're being assisted by other Western 5 countries. So we have an opportunity to go to National Museum of Kenya and see the last of the male to have lived in this world, free of charge. That's a gift for this Easter. Kindly embrace it and walk there. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Let us be up.